fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides in.
Oh, Silver! Let's go, big fellow! I'll Silver! Away!
As the Saturday afternoon stage rolled to a stop in front of the express office, the bar end crew poured out of the cafe to shout their greetings to the driver. But when the door of the stage opened and the dude stepped down, every one of the cowboys lost their voice. For a full minute, they stared at his clothes, at his gray top hat, at his gray suit with the flowered waistcoat, at his patent leather shoes. It was Mike Gary, the foreman, who broke the silence.
Yippee! Look who's come to town. It's Beau Brummel himself. Looks like he stepped right out of a ballroom, don't he, eh? Why, boys, I'll bet you he's come here to teach us how to dance. How about that? Why, sure. All he needs is a little music. All right, lift up your heels and caper, Beau. I said dance.
The bullets kicked up the dust at the dude's feet, but instead of obeying Mike's command, he took off his hat and coat and threw them on the ground.
If you're any kind of a man instead of the braggart and bully I think you are, you'll drop those guns and settle this with your fist.
Well, now, maybe I've got me a wildcat by the tail.
I'm calling you a coward.
Here's my gun belt, Kino.
Kino, Mike.
Young ones ask for it. Let's go.
It was a good fight while it lasted. The dude was young and strong, and he knew how to handle his fists. But there was power in Mike's punches that couldn't be denied. He finally connected with a solid right to the jaw, and the dude dropped to the ground. Just then, Steve Farnsworth, the lawyer, pushed his way through the crowd.
Well, Mike, you really done it this time.
Yeah, Steve. But I'm not a mite proud of myself. You can't judge a man by his clothes. Youngster has spunk.
He has more than that. He has a clear title to the bar and ranch.
What'd you say?
Pay attention. That's Stafford Norris, old Ben Norris's nephew, who inherited the ranch when old Ben died. He knew he'd be coming out here to take over after he finished college. I told you...
Why didn't you tell us he'd be arriving today?
Because he didn't let me know.
Leaping cactus, Steve. I've knocked out my boss.
Yes.
Well, what do I do now?
Pick him up and carry him down to my house. After that, you'd better start looking for another job.
It was not until a month later that Mike left the Bar Inn, however. And by that time, the foreman had begun to hope Staff Norris meant to forget their first meeting. But one day, Staff called him into the office at the ranch and said,
Mike, I've decided to let you go.
That's so?
Yes, and I want to be perfectly honest with you. I know that you've been here a long time, and my uncle thought a lot of you. We started out on the wrong foot. I didn't like the way you acted that first day.
And neither did I.
But that isn't the main reason for letting you go. I've been investigating the way different ranches are run in the valley, and your methods don't measure up to standard.
Whose standard?
The Flying W's. Now, what does that mean?
Nothing.
You don't like Rex Walton, do you?
No.
Is it because he's too civilized?
He's a little too slick for my taste, that's sure.
He's made a great success of his ranch. He's taken me into his confidence, and he tells me that the Flying W makes twice as much as the Bar Inn.
Well, I'll admit he spends an awful lot of money.
He makes a lot of money.
Is it by raising cattle or stealing it?
Are you accusing Walton of being a rustler?
There's always been a lot of rustling in 100 Mile Valley, but whoever's behind it has always left the Bar Inn alone. And that's because your uncle hired men who weren't afraid of a fight. We're a little rough, maybe, but we protected his property. A property that's yours now. It's yours to run the way you feel like. And since I'm no longer your foreman, I suppose I have no right to offer my advice.
You can save it, Mike, if it has anything to do with Walton. He's my friend, and he's promised to help me reorganize this outfit.
The first step being to get rid of me.
Yes.
Who has he suggested to take my place?
Well, for the time being, I'll take your place.
You haven't had much experience.
None at all. I'll be using Walton's experience.
Uh-huh. Well, boss, the boys have had an idea you might not be keeping me on. There's 5 of them. Keno, Shorty, Pete, Roof, Memphis. They'll want to be moving on when I do. I wish they wouldn't. They're good men. You'll need them. But I haven't been able to change their minds.
This doesn't surprise me. Rex told me they'd be leaving if you did. Send them in, I'll pay them off. And here's your money, Mike. I've added an extra 6 months in lieu of notice.
No, thanks, boss. My time is all I want. You'd better keep the extra money. If you're going to take up with all Walton's fancy ideas, you'll need it. And I wouldn't count too much on his friendship.
Another month passed. The Lone Ranger and Tonto, traveling south, camped in the hills above 100 Mile Valley one night. Old Ben Norris had been a friend, and they were interested in how his nephew was making out. So after eating, they rode down to the Bar Inn Range on a tour of inspection. What they saw wasn't encouraging.
That's the second stretch of fence we've seen that needs repairing.
Ah,
Not half the cattle there were when old Ben was alive.
maybe young fellas sell 'em.
Plenty of grass. No reason to cut the herd so drastically. I wonder if young Norris is selling out.
Him make big mistake, do that. Bar Inn, fine ranch.
He's an Easterner, though. Why don't you take a ride down to the bunkhouse? You know Mike Gary. Have a talk with him, find out what's going on.
And that good idea.
Or better still, bring him up to the camp. I'd like to talk with him myself.
Ah, me find 'em. Get 'em up, Scout.
Come on, Silver.
Tonto learned that Mike was no longer with the Bar Inn, and he found him in town lounging on the hotel veranda. The ex-foreman welcomed Tonto and his invitation to visit the Lone Ranger's camp. He rode into the hills with him, and the 3 men sat around the campfire until nearly morning as Mike described the events of the past few months.
So, after he got rid of me and Keno and the others left with me, the youngster took on some new hands. Men that Walton recommended. They're a mangy crew.
We noticed the fences weren't in very good repair. But what about the cattle? There's so few of them.
Rustlers?
You're sure?
I've seen the signs. 50 head one time, 100 head another. They're stealing the youngster blind.
Who is? Any idea?
I say it's Walton.
Have you tracked any of the cattle to the Flying W range?
No, the tracks all lead to the south, the Badlands. No following a trail through them.
Mike, in spite of the fact that you don't work for the Bar Inn anymore, you still seem to be interested in the ranch. Why?
Well, I worked there a long time.
Any other reason?
I like the boy. I can't help feeling that what's happened is all my fault. We hadn't started out all wrong, and I'm to blame for that.
He wouldn't have got so thick with Walton.
You accuse Walton of being a crook.
I sure do.
Why?
I have no proof, if that's what you mean.
What would you do if you found proof?
Tell the sheriff, maybe? Though he's too spineless to relish tangling with the Flying W crew. There'd be no sense in telling Staff. He just wouldn't believe me. Maybe it's just none of my business.
Where are Keno and Shorty and your other old hands?
Yeah, they're around.
Working?
Not regular.
Why haven't you taken another job?
I don't know.
How would you all like to work for the Bar Inn again?
Yeah, that won't happen. There won't be any Bar Inn before long.
But if you could save the ranch, if you could stop this rustling...
Well, we could stop it.
Then why don't you?
Well, I was fired. The others quit.
That doesn't answer my question. Why don't you and your old hands get together and stop this rustling?
Staff wouldn't.
Staff wouldn't have to know anything about it. Get your men together and bring them up here. Tonto and I'll help. We could guard the Bar Inn ranch as it's never been guarded before.
Hey, why don't we do that? I have money. I can buy grub for everybody.
You won't have to worry about that.
Sure. That's what we all want to do. Save the ranch. Give the youngster a break. Get the goods on Walton. But it'd be better if we made our camp in one of the canyons on the south side of the valley.
If that's where the rustlers have been working.
Yeah, it is. Catch them red-handed. Ventilate their ornery hides. Why should I be lazing around that hotel veranda when there's work to be done? It's a great idea.
We'll pick a new campsite tonight.
And I'll round up the boys the first thing in the morning. When I explain to them who you and Tonto are and that you'll be riding with us, there'll be no holding them.
The rangeland faded into badlands all along the southern end of the valley, and beyond the badlands were the 100-mile mountains, cut by hundreds of canyons. It was in one of these that the Lone Ranger made his next camp. And the following night, Mike and all the old hands from the Bar Inn gathered around the campfire. The men were glad to be together again, but their eager talk was cut short by Tonto.
Aye.
Men drive cattle south from Bar Inn Range.
Did you hear that, you ornery sidewinders? Into your saddles.
Easy steady, big fella. How many men, Tonto? How many head of cattle?
Only 2 men, maybe 20, 30 head of cattle. There's plenty time stop them before them cross Badlands.
Follow the masked man and the Indian.
With the Lone Ranger and Tonto riding ahead, the cowboys swept out of the canyon and across the badlands to intercept the rustlers. When the 2 men who were driving the herd saw the determined band bearing down on them, they tried to escape, but the Lone Ranger and Tonto easily cut off their retreat. A few shots were exchanged, but the rustlers had no desire for a gunfight with the odds against them. They drew rein and raised their hands.
All right, you got us.
Mike recognized the men.
It's Jones and Shannon.
Who are they?
2 of the new Bar Inn hands. The boss gives them a job and they pay him back by driving off his steers. Where's all the cattle you've stolen during the past month, Jones?
I don't know what you're talking about.
If these 2 have been responsible for all the rustling, then the situation isn't as bad as we thought it was. They couldn't have driven the cattle far.
Not and report for work the next day.
There's plenty valley and canyon with grass and water and mountains.
Where are they, Jones?
You can figure that out for yourself.
This gun says you're going to help us.
No, now wait.
All right, start talking.
We never drove the cattle past Boulder Creek.
You left them there?
Yeah.
For some more of Walton's coyotes to pick up, huh?
Who said anything about Walton?
I did. The boss pays your wages, but you take your orders from Walton. What do we do now, mister?
We'll hold these 2 men prisoners for the time being.
What about the steers?
We'll drive them onto Boulder Creek and leave them there.
Huh?
We want to find out where the rest of the cattle have gone. As Tonto says, there are any number of valleys and canyons in the mountains where they could be pastured. It would take us days to locate the right one. It will be simpler to let this herd lead us there.
I get it. Leave them at Boulder Creek. Wait until Walton's men show up and then drive them on. Follow them.
It could be that easy. These men should be taken to our camp.
Now, that's your job, Keno. Tie them up good and leave them there.
Right away, Mike.
As for the rest of you, get those steers moving Prado. Come on. Run through there.
The curtain falls on the first act of our Lone Ranger adventure. Before the next exciting scenes, please permit us to pause for just a few moments. to continue. The herd was driven to Boulder Creek, and Tonto was left behind to watch it from the cover of a small woods above the creek. The Lone Ranger and the others returned to their camp to get some sleep. The following morning, when Staff Norris discovered that 2 of his hands and more of his cattle were missing, he rode over to the Flying W. Rex Walton saw him coming and welcomed him from the veranda of the huge ranch house.
Oh, boys. Good morning, Staff.
It isn't a good morning for me.
Now, before you decide that, come on in and have a cup of coffee with me. Or perhaps breakfast. I haven't finished mine. Have you had yours?
Yes, but I'll have another cup of coffee.
I've been thinking about the situation at the Bar Inn.
So have I. We lost another 25 or 30 head last night.
That's too bad.
Not only that, but Jones and Shannon went with them.
What?
Yeah.
Here, sit down. I'll pour the coffee.
Yes, Jones and Shannon are gone.
Yeah, I'm sure you must be mistaken. Into town, perhaps. Or maybe they found the trail of the rustlers and are following them.
I doubt it. Not those 2. In spite of the fact that you recommended them, they're not much good.
I told you they needed a strong hand.
I don't like being a Simon Legree.
Yeah, now, to tell the truth, you don't like being a rancher much, do you?
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I'm saying it for you. There's nothing to be ashamed of in admitting it. It just isn't your country.
It's wonderful country.
Oh, you were raised in the East. You went to college. You're used to a different sort of life. Staff, I've decided to make you an offer for the Bar Inn.
You want me to sell out?
Why, with that money, you could go to Europe. You could do anything you cared to. Think of it, Staff. Paris, London, the good times you'll have. I'll give you $20,000.
20,000? That isn't much for the Bar Inn.
In its present condition, it's a great deal. But out of friendship, I'll make the price 25.
Well, that still isn't much.
It's generous, considering the size of your herds.
They'd be twice their size if I hadn't made a big mistake.
Mistake?
I was a fool to think I could run the ranch myself, even with your help. I was wrong to fire Mike and take on new hands who had no interest in the place. I was all wrong. But it isn't too late to do something about it.
Such as?
Go to Mike and ask him to come back.
You do that after the way he's been laughing at you?
I deserve to be laughed at.
Nah, don't be hasty. You're worried because... Oh, excuse me, Staff. One of my men just rode up. Gotta have a little talk with him.
I'll be getting on.
No, wait here. I haven't finished. I'll be right back.
Hello, boss.
Why are you here?
Well, I had to
This
tell
way
you...
to my office. Now then, before you start, I want to know if you've seen Jones and Shannon.
Well, I didn't see him, but they drove a small herd to Boulder Creek last night. At least the cattle were waiting for us when we got there this morning. Pete and Smitty drove them on the valley, and I came on here
Why didn't they go back to the Bar Inn?
Who?
Jones and Shannon, of course.
I'll forget about them. They probably got thirsty and went into town. I wanted to tell you we got all the steers we can handle in that valley, boss. Over 1,000 head. If you're going to run off any more of the buy-in stock, we'll have to find another place for them. And that means more men. Well, not many. 2 or 3. Now, there's a valley to the west, almost as well hidden as the one we
We're
use.
not running off any more stock.
Oh? You made a deal with young Norris? He's going to sell?
No.
But I thought
He's going to bring Mike Gary back.
Oh, not so good.
Stubborn young fool. He doesn't have sense enough to quit. Wait a minute. I have an idea.
What's that?
He doesn't want to quit. All right? I'll persuade him that he and I should make one last attempt to find the rustlers' hideout in the mountains. And what's more, we'll find it. I'll take him to the valley.
Boss!
He'll never leave it alive. And my story to the sheriff will be simple. Outlaws surprised us. Norris was shot. That's all. With him out of the way, I'll get the Bar Inn cheap.
As Rex Walton was persuading Staff Norris to search the mountains for the rustlers' headquarters, Tonto rode into the Lone Ranger's camp.
Oh, Scott, hold fire. Easy, Scott. Easy, fella.
Well, Tonto, anybody show up?
3 men come to Boulder Creek. 1 ride north. That way.
That'd be in the direction of the Flying W.
Other 2 drive cattle to hills. Tonto follow 'em. Them go to valley high in hills. Maybe 20 mile from here. Only narrow pass lead into valley. They're guard there. But me find way to ridge above valley and look down.
Yeah, what'd you see?
Many cattle. Maybe 1,000 head. Maybe more.
Bar Inn stock.
Me think so, but it's too far to see brand.
Yeah, they have to be.
Do we get the sheriff and take him there, mister?
Why should we bother with the sheriff? Those owl hoots won't give up without a fight. I say capture him. Then take him to town and dump him on the sheriff's front steps.
We'll do what the masked man says, Keno.
I don't think we need the sheriff,
Of course not.
but we may need more men. How about it, Tonto?
There are not many there.
Let's go.
It better we wait till dark. Take guard by surprise. It's easy. High ridge all round valley. There's no escape.
You sure you can lead us back there at night?
Tonto, no way.
Then we'll ride as soon as it gets dark.
It was after midnight when the Lone Ranger, Tonto, and the Bar End cowboys reached the ridge that circled the secret valley.
Those will be the big fella.
There was a full moon, and they could see the great herd of cattle down below. In the middle of the valley, there were men seated around a campfire and horses grazing nearby. Tonto pointed to a narrow opening at one end.
There, pass.
We can surprise the guard. The rest should be easy. Mike, once we're inside the valley, we'll split up. Keep to the shadows on either side until we're opposite the campfire. Then we'll close in.
Good idea. Don't look to be more than 10 of them.
A couple of more riding toward the fire.
Even so. Should we get started?
Now, just a moment. I want to look at those two men who just rode up through the binoculars.
The big one looks like Walton.
Hey, that'd be luck if we could round him up with his hired hands.
Let's see. Yes, it is Walton. He's holding a gun on the other man. Here, take the glasses, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
I've never seen young Norris, but from the way you've described
It is. It's the boss.
Walton's holding a gun on him?
Yeah, we got to get down there fast, mister.
Look! As they watched the men around the campfire, they saw young Norris suddenly wheel his horse and ride hard toward the steep slope directly below them.
He's trying to get away. If only those coyotes were in range.
He's riding in the right direction.
Perhaps he thinks he can climb this slope.
Maybe.
They'll pick him off easy.
There's plenty of cover. If he were armed, he could stand them off.
Look, he's been hit.
No, he just jumped off his horse.
He's been hit, I tell you.
He's starting up the slope, isn't he?
Mike.
Yeah?
You and Tonto and the others get down to the entrance of the pass. Easy, steady, big fella. Take Silver with you, Tonto.
And what you do, Kemosabe?
I'm climbing down to meet Norris. Hurry.
All right, come on. Get him up, down. Come, Silver.
As the Lone Ranger started down the steep slope, he caught a glimpse of young Norris dodging from rock to rock as he climbed toward the top. But from the way the rancher moved, he knew he had been hurt. The outlaws had reached the bottom of the slope and were starting up after him. Occasionally, they fired a shot. They were concentrating on Norris, and not one of them saw the Lone Ranger, who took advantage of all the available cover as he made his swift descent. He saw Norris pull himself up to a ledge and collapse behind the shelter of a boulder. A few seconds later, he had reached the young rancher's side.
Shoot. Get it over with.
I'll shoot, but not at you.
The Lone Ranger opened fire at the outlaws climbing the slope. Surprised, they dove for whatever cover they could find. And for a moment, the hillside was silent.
You're masked. Aren't you one of them?
No, I was a friend of your uncle's. How do you happen to be here?
Walton persuaded me he could find the rustlers' camp. No reason why he shouldn't be able to. Those men all worked for him. When we got here, he pulled a gun on me. If he hadn't wanted to brag about how smart he was and gotten careless, I'd be dead now instead of just... Oh.
You've been hit?
A couple of times.
I'll see what I can do for you when I get the chance. Right now, I must make Walton's men keep their distance.
They're coming after us?
That one isn't.
You'd better get out of here while you can. I can't move. It's only a question of time before...
Wait, there's Walton.
Did you get him?
Caught him in the arm.
Did you hear what I said? Better forget about me and make your getaway.
Neither I nor your other friends are forgetting you, Norris.
My other friends? Around here?
Mike Gary and the men who used to work for you.
Mike? And the others? You called them my friends?
A book shouldn't be judged by its cover. A man shouldn't be judged by his manners.
I give you Walton as an example.
Mike and Keno and the rest of them may be a little rough, but they're honest and they're loyal. They'll be proving it in a few minutes.
I don't understand.
You will.
What's happening? Are they coming after us?
Your friends are coming after you. Here, I'll lift you up so you can see.
Who are those men riding this way?
The Bar End crew.
The Bar End crew? Yes. There's Mike. And look at Walton running for his horse.
He won't get away. None of the others will either.
They're giving up.
Yes. Now we'll see how badly you're hurt.
Oh, I feel fine. I feel wonderful. We'll get our cattle back, and and those crooks will go to jail.
You said our cattle.
Why not? Those boys, they're the bar end as much as I am.
Easy now, easy. Let's see. Your shoulder. Yes, your leg. We'll have you fixed up in no time.
Are you all right, boss?
I'm fine, Foreman.
As a result of that night's work, Walton and his men went to jail. And Staff Norris had almost completely recovered from his wounds when the Bar End crew, the old Bar End crew, drove their herd down from the hills to the home range. Staff watched them with one hand resting on Mike's shoulder.
Tired, boss?
I could watch this all day.
The masked man said you should take it easy.
Whatever happened to him, Mike?
He was around today.
I'd like to have seen him. Thank you.
Hey, you don't have to do that. Not him.
Oh, perhaps I should have given him a reward.
And he doesn't want rewards. Why, say, what with all the excitement, I never told you who he is.
He said he was a friend of Uncle Ben's.
He's your friend and my friend and the friend of everyone who deserves his friendship. He's the Lone Ranger.
This is a feature of the Lone Ranger Incorporated, created by George W. Trendle, produced by Trendle Campbell Enterprises, directed by Charles D. Livingston, and edited by Fran Stryker. The part of the Lone Ranger is played by Brace Beamer.
You've been listening to the OTR Gold Network. Find more classic radio at otrgold.com.